Are you feeling bored? Getting antsy waiting for Death Stranding 2? And you've already played the first game for hundreds of hours? Well, we've got just the thing for you. It's called the Death Stranded Challenge Run. Just boot up Death Stranding, turn the difficulty up to very hard, and disable all network connections. Then just start playing the game and it'll feel like you're playing it again for the first... Wait, hold on. There's no reason to leave. It's really fun, I promise. Hello? Well, we finally have a solid date for Death Stranding 2, and we just have to wait a little longer before Kojima blesses us with his bounties once more. But if you're like me and you want to squeeze all the blood from this chiralium stone, you can still experience the first game in a fresh new way. Now, I've played this thing for hundreds of hours, gotten all the patches, all the achievements, gotten 5 stars with every porter. I know this game like the back of my hand.
Hey, that's new.
But recently I stumbled upon some posts online that suggested playing completely offline. So I decided to give it a go, and I figured I'd bump the difficulty up to very hard as well, just for the hell of it. The result was more dramatic than I expected. My main motivation for attempting this challenge, which I have dubbed Death Stranded, was to get rid of all the superfluous structures that I would see in all my previous playthroughs, roads in particular. Don't get me wrong, I very much get the appeal of having all these structures and equipment from other players, and I've had plenty of experiences when I've been bailed out by someone else's kindness. But if you've already experienced the game with these features, turning them off actually provides a really interesting challenge. When I started making deliveries in this new playthrough, I got an almost nostalgic feeling. Typically, a new playthrough for me feels like retreading known territory, literally and figuratively. This time, I had to really pay attention and think about what I needed to bring and how I would tackle each delivery. And this comes both from playing offline and from increasing the difficulty. The difficulty setting mostly affects wear and tear. Your cargo will degrade more quickly, your boots will wear out faster, you'll get tired more easily, your battery will drain faster, and you'll even take more damage, at least from what I could tell. On top of all this, you're completely self-reliant. You won't find any structures or equipment in the wild to help you out of a bind, aside from a few things set out by NPC characters, so you really need to use the knowledge you've gained from previous playthroughs to ensure Sam and his packages arrive at their destination in one piece. Because of all this, my most recent playthrough was the most exciting one I've had since the first time I picked the game up. So why start over? Well, for one, I don't think going offline will just remove all existing roads and structures in an existing game, though I didn't specifically test that. But another important factor is Sam's proficiencies. As you get deeper into the game, Sam gets better at keeping his balance, carrying his weight, holding his breath, etc. So starting from the beginning lets you really start from zero. Plus, I find it fun to unlock all the tools and structures again anyway. And very hard mode really reframes the importance of various tools, like the legs for example. All the exoskeletons feel more intentional in their purpose. Before, I would almost always use the support skeleton as a catch-all, but now the power skeleton feels like a great tool for easing my burden and saving me from losing all my stamina. And the speed skeleton allows me to sprint and move quickly without also burning through my stamina. Something else you'll have to keep an eye on is your bandwidth. I usually don't have any issue in this department because of other people's structures, but I actually ran into bandwidth issues a couple times in this playthrough, so you'll want to consider your network usage wisely. I guess now's as good a time as any to mention vehicles. Now, this isn't necessarily a hard and fast stipulation for this challenge, but I basically never used vehicles, zip lines, or even cargo containers, except for style points. Personally, I find the game more interesting and dynamic if you tackle it on foot. It just feels more in the spirit of the game to me, but I understand that not everyone feels this way. In any case, your experience could vary from mine if you decide to use vehicles often. But in my case, things like container repair spray and timefall shelters became very important for obvious reasons. And I found myself resting more often than normal too because I went through my canteen pretty quickly. Though I did just realize on this playthrough that timefall shelters will restore your canteen. And of course, if there's a body of water nearby, you can wade into that to restore it as well. And let's not forget about saunas. If you wear Sam out to the point that his maximum stamina diminishes, saunas can actually restore it to full, and some of them have additional properties. There are 7 in total, 4 of which have special effects. The Crater Digestive Bath will give you more EX grenades when you make poops, or otherwise use the facilities in your private room. The recharging spring will, of course, charge your batteries. Finally, the World's End Miracle Pool and Heartwarming Spa will restore your health and boost your stamina beyond the normal maximum. So earlier I mentioned how quickly your stamina runs out and your footwear degrades and so on, but there are a few scenarios where your gauges will be locked or the game will otherwise throw you a bone. When you're within the limits of a shelter or distribution center, your footwear, stamina, and battery will not diminish whatsoever. Full stop. If you get into a skirmish with mules or terrorists, you'll be given a temporary boosted stamina, and your footwear will not break no matter how close they are to doing so. Similarly, when you enter BT territory, BB will never become autotoxemic until you make your escape. Speaking of BTs, the bosses do become more of a challenge, but nothing unmanageable. Basically, you just want to be really prepared, especially since you won't get any help from other players. This is where your knowledge of previous playthroughs is going to come in handy. And of course, some of the bosses can just be avoided by running away, though you do get quite a few chiral crystals from defeating them, and it's always good to have more of them as it will lighten your load. Basically, if you don't know, every 1000 centigrams of crystals that you carry will grant you an extra kilogram of carrying capacity. Anyway, I didn't find the BT bosses to be radically more difficult or annoying than when I would play on normal, it just took a little more effort to put them down. Also, they were more plentiful in some cases. Mules and terrorists were similarly harder to take down, but not unbearable. But we should definitely take a moment to talk about the war memories. To me, these sections are the least original and least interesting parts of the game, and they are weirdly way harder than the rest of the campaign. So I straight up just switched to very easy mode for these sections. I did try to give it a fair shake on very hard, but it's just too hard, and it doesn't feel fun or interesting to overcome the challenge, it's just tedious. You can switch the difficulty back after you finish the memory, and nobody will be mad at you. But that covers most of what the Death Stranded challenge entails. I will say I think it's important to use the all-terrain skeleton and the thermal pads when traveling through snow in the late game, and maybe power gloves, but then I'm always using the gravity gloves, so I wouldn't know. One other tip that I couldn't really find a good spot for. When sneaking through BT territory, you can use the Bell Talisman and equip sandalweed shoes to make it easier to slip past them. The Bell Talisman, by the way, you can get from the Novela's son after getting him to 2 stars. Also, rather than holding your breath as you approach a BT, you can just crouch walk normally, and if you alert one of them, you can then hold your breath and keep moving and you'll get away pretty easy. This results in less breath holding overall. But anyway, I hope you try out this challenge and you enjoy it as much as I did, because I had a great time with it, and I can't wait to get my greasy mitts on the second game. Thanks for watching video, write comment, like video, subscribe channel, give me money, and goodbye.